Yeah, would Blizzard actually go out of their way to say like, okay, we are going to block um, people from launching the game if they have an ARM chip inside their computer, right? Which they can do with anti-cheat. They can do that with like limiting the installation in general. The second question that I asked the person that is quite close to the situation, is like, how likely is it that Blizzard would release Overwatch for ARM? But there is a third question. And the third question has to do with, obviously, the big news that Microsoft is trying to buy Blizzard. According to our information, you are suffering from a potentially terminal side effect of not being subscribed. All we can do for now is changing that right now so we can have the best chance of your survival. And I will do that right now. No, wait, let me start over. Blizzard Entertainment announced the beta for Overwatch 2. And Overwatch 2 is obviously, I mean, it's somewhat of a sequel, it's somewhat of an expansion. I'm not completely sure how to call it. There we go. Yeah, we basically don't know what Blizzard is trying to sell this Overwatch 2 as. So they announced the beta. There you go. And announcing the beta obviously involves letting people sign up. So I did sign up. There's something special about our little situation here. So I did reach out to someone that is close to the situation at Blizzard. What does that mean? I can't tell you. Because, well, obviously, some things are going to remain a secret. Anyways, for the longest time, we have been trying to show people playing how it is to play games on Apple Silicon Macs, which are based on ARM, right? The architecture ARM. At this moment, there are not a lot of games that are optimized for the ARM chip. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't play them, just like how we're playing here with Overwatch, right? Overwatch is currently a game that isn't supported or isn't officially supporting ARM on the PC. Meaning that we can play it, but I mean, at your own risk. Right now, I am launching the game on Windows in a emulation application called Parallels. So it's like running Windows on top of macOS inside a program that's called Parallels, and then inside Windows you have like obviously Windows ARM trying to run an Intel x86 game, so it's kind of like also emulating the Intel version of Windows inside Windows ARM. So you basically have like levels and like levels and levels of emulation going on right now, which makes it very interesting that it even runs. Like I can't believe that. Obviously we are running on the currently highest chip that is actually released, right? There is a higher chip announced, which is the M1 Ultra. We have the M1 Max with 64 gigabytes of RAM and also like the 32 core GPU. So it is currently the best of the best that you could have in your possession unless you have special agreements with Mr. Cook, and we don't. Not yet anyway. Anyways, I started talking to a person that is close to the situation at Blizzard. Close to the Overwatch 2 situation. And I asked that person, him, her, they, let's just say they, them. I asked they, them about the possibility. I asked them three questions. First question was, is there a possibility that Blizzard would actually go out of their way to block people from launching the next expansion? Yeah, would Blizzard actually go out of their way to say like, okay, we are going to block people from launching the game if they have an ARM chip inside their computer, right? Which they can do with anti-cheat. They can do that with like limiting the installation in general, right? like they do with, I feel like Call of Duty, where they do both, like both anti-cheat and installing. I feel like when installing, you get a little pop-up that it's not supported, and then you're done. And the reason why they do that is probably also like because of the experience, right? If you look at this, obviously I'm also like streaming right now, so it's even worse. You see a bunch of lag, you see a bunch of stutter, and the reason for that is that obviously all the emulation that's going on. I'm also streaming in 1080p, 60 FPS. It's a lot of problematic situations that you're in. Now, I asked Datum about Blizzard actually going out of the way of doing that same artificial obstacles for people trying to play Overwatch 2, and Datum told me that it's highly unlikely. Datum said that there is no speculation, no talk inside Blizzard, or as far as Datum know, about explicitly like blocking ARM players. It wouldn't make much sense as well, since the game is practically an engine upgrade, and you are still able to play with people that have Overwatch 1. So Datum told me that it's kind of silly to do it in the first place. So yeah, it wouldn't make sense to do that, which means that there's a high likelihood that you will be able to launch the game and play the game and do what you're doing right now, right here, right? But the question remains: what happens to what happens to the game? How far, how problematic is it going to be to run the game, since there's a new engine? There are more textures. There maybe are more shaders. There is maybe lighting effects, ability effects, right? Which might make it more problematic to play the game, but they won't go out of their way, or at least that is what we believe right now, to block you from launching it. The second question that I asked Datum, person that is quite close to the situation, is like, how likely is it that Blizzard would release Overwatch for ARM on the PC? Datum told me that the possibility of that happening is extremely low. The reason for that is because Datum told me that there are no plans right now to do that. And secondly, like, the game is too far into... I don't know why I did that. I fat-fingered that ultimate there. But anyways, I feel like, yeah, what Datum told me is like, there are no plans for it, and the game is too far into production to start like making that happen right now. Now, there's no, that's not like a... Datum told me explicitly to mention that doesn't mean that it won't ever happen. But the ARM team apparently right now is not looking into, yeah, building anything for the ARM PC environment. So, like, obviously, Datum are referring to the ARM team that is probably working on Overwatch Switch, right? Because there is an ARM version of Overwatch, and it is publicly available. It's just not for the PC. Why it's not for the PC is because it's obviously optimized for the Switch. You have like the way it's accessing cache, the way it's accessing memory, the way it's accessing texture packs, or what is it? Yeah, textures in general, shaders, is just slightly different. So they won't be able to show you this. They won't be able to sell you a $60 game that is optimized for Nintendo Switch for the ARM computing devices. And that's mainly like the main thing, right? So there is an ARM version. Obviously, then there is a team that looks after the ARM version. which is now referred to as the ARM team, and that team that would be in control over any version of Overwatch 2 or Overwatch 1 ever releasing on the ARM architecture, or well, they would know if there are such plans. Apparently, as of now, there is none. So, anyways, that is, yeah, that I feel like that is basically a slight bummer, right? It's just we would love to see that. It's just it's hard. But there is a third question, and the third question has to do with obviously the big news that Microsoft is trying to buy Blizzard. And I'm explicitly saying trying to buy because we got, well, you know how things goes, right? You have the entire process that Microsoft has to go to, and Blizzard will have to go to as well. That would mean that FTC, EU regulators, I don't know, whoever gets involved, right, might be able to block this deal. And although it's kind of unlikely that they will completely block the purchase, they might be able to say, like, okay, well, we're not blocking it, but you're going to have to make certain agreements with competitors and whatever. And this could impact game development as well. Like, there's a lot of shit that could go on, and that ties into my third question. How likely is it that if Microsoft succeeds in buying Blizzard, that games for ARM would start releasing? And they told me that the impact of that is just not really known at this moment. But obviously, as we already know, and as they told me as well, Microsoft is selling decently pricey, dare I say premium, dare I say high-end Surface ARM devices. Things that they design, it's obviously designed in with Qualcomm in mind, right? Or Qualcomm is the one that designs the chips, and they're getting repackaged a little bit with probably some extra components inside it, like the system on a package or system on a chip. It's probably get some extra components for Microsoft, but it's essentially the same chip that Qualcomm already sells. But it is there, so it would make sense that eventually, if Microsoft starts making these devices more and more, to obviously make their game library available for ARM chips, especially the popular games. And well, looking at the hype from Overwatch, this might become a popular game. So if they own it, they might be able to do that and open the Surface lineup up to a bigger audience, right? So if they start designing their own chips, apparently they are hiring people with experience of designing these chips in-house. All signs are showing that Microsoft is trying to get into the game. And it makes sense. It makes sense to get into the game, because look at how successful Apple is at it, and Microsoft has enough capital to get this done. And then with all these game studios, they are able to push it to the gamers as well. Something that obviously something that obviously Apple is not able to do right now. Anyways, they told me that could make it a few percentages more likely that there will, somewhere down the line, be ARM support for this game, the game that's coming out next. Overwatch 1, highly unlikely. Overwatch 2, Also highly unlikely, but maybe a little bit more likely. So yeah, that's basically it. Let me try and keep this May alive. Can I do this?
Nice.
Mm,
Brilliant.
yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, I'm falling back. So yeah, there are these 3 points, right? These 3 pillars that I wanted to talk about. Is Overwatch going to be Overwatch 2? Is Overwatch 2 going to be available for ARM users? Well, at this point, there are no signs of Blizzard explicitly blocking the ARM emulation. So, like, it's highly likely that just like now, like I'm doing right now, you will be able to run the game. Number 2 is, should we expect an ARM version of Overwatch 2 to be released now? Practically, the answer to that is no. It's highly unlikely that that would happen, so that is pillar number 2. That's unfortunately bad news. Pillar number 3 was the third question that I asked them about Microsoft planning to buy or trying to buy Blizzard, and depending on how that goes with the FTC, EU regulators, like UK regulators, depending on how that all goes, we might be able to get into a situation. Let me cancel the search because we're going to end this here. We might be able to get into a situation where it's in Microsoft's best interest to get their most popular games at least supported or balanced on the Windows ARM spectrum of their lineup, since they're selling quite expensive, dare I say again, premium, dare I say high-end computing devices with ARM chips in there, right? 16 gigabytes of RAM. I feel like this is an option. It's quite a decent ARM chip. It's well, the software balance and the it obviously being just a off-the-shelf Qualcomm chip is hard, and then on top of that, obviously, we know that Microsoft is looking into building their own chips because they're hiring people that are experts in it. So that is just quite confirmed. Why would you hire them if you're never going to use it for that? Maybe it's just server side, but eventually it will probably, obviously drip down to the consumer devices as well. But hey, a lot could happen. Again, regulators can still say no. And if that happens, it will probably be the EU. And then it's highly unlikely that they will say no. I feel like there will be some contracts or guidelines that they want to have on paper. But apart from that, I feel like it's highly, highly unlikely that it will get into a situation where we won't... where they will completely block this deal. So, what do we have here? We have more comments, I see. Again, I keep forgetting they have the Switch version. Yeah, again, we are not the target audience for portable gaming devices, so that's why you keep forgetting it. Still don't understand why they haven't released it for Windows ARM, though. The Switch version, so it's hard because like you can't port every single game just one-on-one to the desktop, and if you do that, you might run into problems. Like a lot of people, you can Google it, right? A lot of people are already complaining about these ports not being too good. Let's call it that. So they are in a situation where obviously they access memory a little bit differently. Like consoles, they just access memory differently. Cache, shaders, loading in textures. It's just different, and it's not like it's not a complete mess. It's not like it won't run at all, right? A few adjustments, and yes, it will run. The question is, are you going to be able to ask someone to pay $60 for it or $70 for it? No. I mean, right now I feel like most of the time you can find Overwatch for 15 euros. I mean, yeah, then whatever, right? But they're going to release Overwatch 2, not for 15 euros, and obviously buying Overwatch 1 right now is not the best optics that you can have. Um, so I would, in general, I would say that it makes more sense to have to have them focus on building the game actually for ARM, like they have done on the Switch, and make sure that like performance issues, especially if you want to play the game competitively, yeah, you just want to have all those kinks out. So that's the reason why a gaming company that has, with a reputation of Blizzard, now obviously we know like the shit that has been going on. But you have to understand these engineers are still quite passionate about this game. So I like to focus on the positive side, and the positive sides are these software engineers, these game designers, these game engineers that essentially want this game to be perfect. So that is the part of Blizzard that I am happy to talk about every single time, every single moment of the day. So that's what I'm doing here. And I feel like they wouldn't be happy to release some Switch port for the PC. That it's gonna be mental. So, anyways, so that's the reason why it's not released. EU cockblock, yeah. I mean, they have done it before. They might do it again. Yeah, the EU. So, like, it's not all bad, right? Because like sometimes you have to keep these companies in check, especially if they start buying the entire gaming industry. They started doing well. They have been doing it for a really long time, but it started to be very noticeable for the entire world that the EU is kind of done with this behavior when they, well, quite literally threatened to block the deal between Fox and Disney. Mm. So it makes sense that they are going to take a hard look at this deal between our friends over at Microsoft and Blizzard, or Activision Blizzard, right? It just makes sense. So yeah. Anyways, I feel like that is the topic on Overwatch, and yeah, I feel like we handled everything. The crowd reaction, such a hype, dude. I don't think it died. It went away a little bit because we didn't get an update for a really long time. But now that we have an update, I don't know if you have opened Twitter lately. It's mental. Stylosa, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name. Amazing channel. Like, he went wild, basically.